We're recording. Been gone for a bit, by the way. For been gone for 5 days since last Thursday. Yes. So I'm sure I'm not going to read one of these videos. This today's date is probably going to be one of those updates. But so I traveled. I traveled for 4 days. I went to Turkey. Uh, how it happened was literally like a friend of mine messaged me. She goes like, "I'm going to Turkey for a couple of days for a friend's wedding. Do you want to join and hang out? I haven't seen her in about 4 years." And so I was like, what better reason to go somewhere, right? And just went for it, budgeted for it, basically set everything up beforehand, and I went. Now, keep in mind, I went to a different country, which means it's a completely different environment. And a lot of people say when you go to a new country, it's a culture shock. So let's kind of like remove that meaning from it being a culture shock to a certain awe. And again, when I say all, because like first things first, you're out of where you are. So like when I was leaving Lebanon, I was kind of like on a certain vibe because the entire day I made sure that entire day is normal. Like I woke up, I did my walk, I exercised, I did a few meetings, I talked to the people I have to talk to, fully scheduled as a normal day. And then basically by 2 o'clock, I head to the airport. And when I went to the airport, I started basically reading. I panicked for a bit because I saw a plane to Turkey leaving, and I was like, "Did I fuck up the hours?" And I ran. They were like, "No, it's a completely different airline." And I'm like, "Ha ha ha!" So I had to sit there sweating, and basically, like, you already, anytime you're traveling, because you walk a lot through airports and a lot of people breathe on you, so you kind of already have some odor. Well, I went through that, and I actually basically had my own on top of it because I sweated. But as I was reading, I remember my book, man. I love this book. I really love this book. It's just genuinely like I take a chapter at a time. And once I feel like I want to read another chapter, I kind of like open it and I go another chapter. And I'm lucky because like there are chapters and sub chapters, and I read sub chapters actually. And every chapter has like 6 to 16 sub chapters, depending on the size of it or the different approaches the actual author is trying to like bring it. It's called reality transurfing. Transurfing reality, actually, by Vladimir Zealand. I would very much recommend that book. Super beautiful. The reason I love it is because it actually is a documentation of basically every single interaction you have, period, with the world, life slash reality, God, the universe, physical objects, friends, family, it doesn't matter. It's every single reaction you might have. If you actually explore it all the way until it no longer is a valid thing to think about, right? That book is basically that kind of documentation. So, and normally I very much am in tune with myself when it comes to reading because when I notice that I'm no longer focusing, I stop, kind of look somewhere else, or I kind of like just go back to the paragraph. And if the paragraph feels like off, like I feels like I haven't read it, I go back a paragraph before, and sometimes I even go back to the beginning, to the first chapter, because whatever it is that while I was reading, kind of like took me away, made me forget everything I read, or basically I actually my mind threw it there because of what I read triggered something in me. So sometimes I actually look at the trigger and I look at whatever was triggered and I kind of like follow through with it because like being triggered is I think the blessing that we human beings actually have. And if we were to consider consciousness from a conscious approach, not from a primitive approach. Again, am I going too far off? No. So what happens is basically like sometimes I look at go like, okay, I'm not no longer focusing. Whatever I was thinking about, is it worth it? No, this, and this. So it's just a normal thing, and I just go back to reading, or I realize where I stopped thinking. And sometimes it's a big enough thing for you to be like, no, okay, your mind completely dives into something else. And for me, it was writing a letter. And it was funny because like I was like, why would I write a letter? And then it hit me because over the course of the past couple of weeks, I was thinking from an organizational perspective. How would I, what kind of person would I be if I'm writing like letters to basically investors, or writing letters to like my CEO, or writing letters to my basically to my board of directors, whatever, right? Like, how would I do it? And I started writing, and the first person I thought about was Jack Dorsey for some fucking reason. And a few things kind of like came with that thought that he said at one point. And I kind of created the outline of the entire letter. And I wrote like 4 pages over a course of like 3 hours. It was super beautiful. It was a high that I was on because I was leaving. It felt like there was something that happening. Me leaving is something, even though everything is just a normal day, right? But just the transitioning from environment to another to another to another kind of like creates a certain pattern of sorts. So ultimately, I ended up basically I wrote a 4 page letter, and by the time at one point we reached high in the sky, and my pen started foaming and like dripping on the page. So I took it as a sign to stop, and I just enjoyed the view for the next 20 minutes and hung out with the first officer captain, talked to some people and all that good stuff. But the idea behind it is like, I entered the new country, and I had a distant cousin over there that kind of like came pick me up, and we never actually talked, and we talked, and we ended up talking about a lot of just like my conversational kind of things. It was like a beautiful day that kind of like made me as well feel even more high. And like halfway through when I was talking to him, I'd realized like, shit, man, I'm having this conversation in Turkey. Like, what has changed other than the scenery? And like my mind would take like a minute or two just kind of like processing things differently, and like smelling the air and hearing the conversations and all the good stuff. And so it's not really culture shock, it's more awe. And the reason I say awe, it's because it's not like you're entering the same approach could be taken. I'm going to a new place that has completely different things. Or I'm leaving my place and I don't know what to expect. And from there, me noticing that, or at the very least, me kind of like, instead of looking like, oh my God, I'm in a new place versus I'm out of my place, gave me a different, what was it? Made me feel like I'm in a meditative state. And so a meditative state, the way I would explain it, is a stony state. As in you feel stoned. You feel like you're like, whoa, right? But the beauty of it is because like it's a completely new environment. So you're like, whoa, but like everything is kind of like coming to you. And it's such a beautiful country, and it's very well developed. And foundational structure and the systems of it are just kind of like beautiful. I did not expect that. Like, I don't know why, maybe because it's too close to my country, so I expected it to kind of like have a similar vibe. No, 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 no. The entire country is on a different level, definitely. Whatever they're doing, fuck yeah, man. I don't care how they're doing it, in all honesty, because like, their core and everything they're trying to establish is genuinely for the sake of the country. So props to them. If it works, fuck yeah, go for it. I don't know if they're assholes about it or not. I'm sure these kinds of things have some sketchy backgrounds behind them, but I don't fucking care. Beautiful place. I enjoyed every minute of it. We walked a lot, had good food, found like awkward places, saw a fuck ton of tourists, man. A lot, a lot. You don't get it. A lot. Different all over the world, different cultures, different countries, all over the world. Just like a fuck ton of tourists. A lot, a lot. It's the place that we were there, man. The place that we were there had literally a tower that used to be a prison, like 20, 50 meters away from us, about 60, 70 yards. And just everyone who kind of like came to Istanbul, man, had to go visit that place and take a picture there. So anytime we're leaving the house, we're coming to the house, we had to walk through all these tourists. It was a beautiful spot though. And just in general, the whole architecture and how it's built, it's just kind of like, I it's super fun because like everything is kind of like left in its medieval state, but then you look around and you see like fully organized electrical like entry points or something like this. Like proper systems were built while trying to preserve the old structures. It's such a beautiful place, very good time, and a certain emptiness to my mind basically was there. Anytime I think of work, I kind of like pump myself up and get excited, but then almost the same day I kind of go like, what am I doing? Because what happens is when you're away from something that you kind of like, I don't know. It's like I mentioned it once that like chilling is an active experience. And when I'm just like looking at random things and random people and random skies and random stars, and I had a drink with the moon the first night. When I'm looking at all that stuff, the first thing that comes to mind was basically what I'm trying to do in this world. And then when it comes beyond the context of my work, it kind of like builds up differently. So I kind of saw it from an external standpoint, I would say, that me actually saying, when I come back, I'm gonna do this and I'm gonna do that. I'm like, no, and then I'd be like, no, why? From now till then, we both know when I come back, I'm gonna do exactly what I need to do. Most of the stuff is already scheduled, and I'm gonna progress basically exactly with what is required of me. And it's a beautiful thing the way it kind of like got figured out. And space, man, just like having space is that relevant, especially when you're kind of like far away from people. I think that's how I felt when I went to the south. But the south still felt like Lebanon. It didn't feel like I was detached. It just felt like I was away. I don't know, just updates. I've been interviewing today all day. I came back yesterday, and today all day I've been interviewing for like business analysts, and it's been quite a good day. Super fun stuff to look forward to. And I don't know what to say, man. Just allowing days to kind of pass. Yeah, allowing days to kind of pass through you instead of you going through them is basically something that has been has been looking because I felt still for the 5 days that I was there. And I felt like effectively what was happening is kind of like everything was flowing around me. And I don't know how to articulate that feeling. And I don't think I should. But in all honesty, maybe that's how kind of like being chill truly feels like. Maybe the only difference is normally I'm chill hanging out, sitting down, not just like walking about and discovering. It's probably a new way to look at things, or the way to look at it. We're not sure. But I wanted to give you guys an update. Peace. It's a video. Woohoo.